The internet is all abuzz with talk of the Space Force, and with good reason. I mean, it's super meme-worthy. But what will the Space Force actually do? And is it even necessary? Astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson gave the first convincing justification for a new space branch of the military when he likened it to the creation of the Air Force in 1947.
In the Second World War, there was the Air Force, except they were not their own branch. They were part of the Army. It was called the Army Air Force. And then we realized that command and control in the air needs different kinds of soldiers, because they have to be pilots. It's a different kind of decision making, different kinds of tactical actions you would have in the theater of operations. And so it was sensible to spawn off a new branch of the military called the Air Force.
As the mission of the Air Force evolved, as well as the technology throughout the space race of the Cold War, the United States established the Air Force Space Command, which focused on missile warning, launch operations, satellite control, space surveillance, and command and control. It's not unreasonable for space operations to merit their own dedicated branch of the military. Plus, it just makes sci-fi nerds tingle a little. But the tension of the Cold War led to the Outer Space Treaty of 1967, an international agreement that essentially banned weapons in space. Specifically, it banned weapons of mass destruction from Earth's orbit, the moon or other celestial bodies, or other stations in outer space. It also prohibited the establishment of military bases or installations, weapons testing, or military maneuvers on the moon and other celestial bodies. Like Mars. There are no Marines on Mars, you guys. Now that I have your attention, check out our article on the Mars Defense Force. Wake up, sheeple. So if we can't weaponize space, what can we do? First and foremost, we have to protect our satellites. American satellites are one of the most important parts of modern digital infrastructure. They're also extremely vulnerable. They're under constant threat of striking debris that's already flying through orbit, and countries like China and Russia have both demonstrated the capabilities to bring one down at any time. If you think China and Russia wouldn't openly sabotage the satellite systems of the US or our allies, then you haven't been paying attention to the cyber environment. Yeah. A Space Force would likely be tasked with building countermeasures to protect these valuable assets. Oncoming missiles could be confused with jamming or brought down with lasers, but lasers can also serve as an offensive weapon against enemy satellites. Additionally, some spacefaring nations, including the US, are developing technologies that could allow them to seize enemy satellites and steer them into danger. This all feels like a slippery slope to a game of chicken that no one should play, but I don't know, that's just me talking. A critical and non-threatening mission of the Space Force would be to mitigate destruction caused by space debris. This is an environmental threat to not only our satellites, but in an extreme scenario, the Earth itself. An official from FEMA said that a catastrophic asteroid strike is a, quote, low probability but high consequence event, unquote. NASA therefore literally has a plan to deflect destructive Earthbound asteroids. So, all you dreamers out there who want to be Bruce Willis from Armageddon,
take care of yourself. I love you. I love you.
Saying there's a chance. Another important task of the Space Force will be recovering survivors of any accidents, collisions, or other mishaps in orbit. America has already agreed to a treaty stating that all spacefaring states will assist in the rescue of any astronaut in distress, but rescues in space will likely be even more problematic once there are, more people in space. Equipment isn't really standardized between different space agencies, though Russia and the US do share some matching equipment thanks to their access to space shuttle schematics when overhauling the Soviet space program. The Space Force will likely have to figure out ways to rescue astronauts and civilians in space despite those equipment differences. The Space Force will probably also be responsible for developing orbital technology and providing rides to the rest of the military. While the Marine Corps has already done some preliminary work on how to move its Marines via orbit, little planning exists for the nitty-gritty details of moving troops through space. All of the branches will likely develop some tools for moving personnel, but Congress will likely demand that the branches prevent unnecessary redundancy. Like how the Army has its own BOATs, planes, and helicopters, but has to get most of its rides from the Navy and Air Force. The Space Force will be the preeminent branch in space, and will likely need the spaceports and shuttles to match. But before you get too excited over this sexy new frontier, just remember, the Space Force is going to have to do a shit ton of paperwork. Another US space treaty obligates America to provide details of every object it launches into space, as well as every person who enters space. All of those details that get checked when personnel enter or leave a country will also be recorded when they enter or leave space, necessitating an admin corps who join the Space Force exclusively to pass paperwork. If you think it's annoying to tell people you were in the Air Force but didn't fly, imagine the disappointment when people talk to Space Forcemen who aren't astronauts. Space Forcemen? Spacemen? Space specialist? Rocket specialist? Rocket man?
Rocket man. Rocket man. Burning out his fuse out here alone.
All we can hope is that the mission of the Space Force will not involve warfare. A space war with China alone would cause billions of bits of debris to fly across the solar system, with both nations' critical satellites becoming the first casualties. The US has over 800 in orbit alone that provide intelligence, communication, and GPS across the globe. Even lasers and jammers just disabling satellites, not even destroying them, would be catastrophic for our respective countries' operations. The idea that a conflict in space would remain in space is as naive as the people who don't think their bad decisions follow them home from Vegas. Right now, the main thing that keeps war from breaking out between first world countries with differing ideologies is mutually assured destruction and/or economic partnerships. But shady activity in space could change that, even if cyber attacks haven't yet. A space battle would quickly destroy a significant portion of our internet architecture, our weather data, and other critical systems like GPS, potentially setting us back decades and doing heaven knows what to our respective economies. Best to adopt a Starfleet mission set: deep space exploration, research, defense, diplomacy, and peacekeeping. So, what do you think about the Space Force? Leave us a comment, let us know, and check out our merch.